All right, welcome back. We are friends of Nagarjuna, studying his letter to the king by way of Gyaltsabje's commentary, Supreme Garden, I think. It's January 21, 2026. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you, gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion, their wisdom radiating from them, that beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Working with karma and emptiness, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with that intention, we turn our minds back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet. to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, 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 teach me that, show me that, help me become that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world, the pure world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratnam Mandalakam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing in this reading and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing in this session and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that we do in sharing in this session and the rest, may all beings totally awaken for the benefit of every single other. Peace, peace, peace. So if we recall, Arya Nagarjuna is talking to the king about morality. And there were 16 points of morality that he was talking about. And then we've gotten into this section where he's seems to be explaining to the king why it is that morality is so important. And we had gotten to this point where he's talking about the root cycle of pain and how we perpetuate it. So we were a little ahead of this, but I thought we could go back and start this section again, studying, recognizing the root of the cycle of pain and a metaphor for how the cycle of pain depends on its root. So here we go. Janet, you are the first on with me today. Will you start us off, please?
How much we grasp to our parts is how much we grasp to a me. If we grasp to a me, that karma also brings about a rebirth.
Okay. And go ahead if you like.
Here is the first. For as long as we grasp to our parts as existing through some nature of their own, and have failed to use our reasoning to root out this object we think we see, we are grasping to a me, which is included within the view of destruction. And it won't be damaged at all.
Comments, anyone? Elsie, please.
If our tendency of grasping to a me continues in that way, in such a way that even the most obvious forms of it haven't been damaged at all, we collect the karma that projects the cycle of pain. Mm. So, so the view of destruction that won't be damaged is actually the wrong worldview.
Right.
Right? If we keep grasping to a me,
Right.
so we always forever be in that cycle.
If those others have their own nature, then me has my own nature. And that me with my own nature is what keeps me doing things towards those others.
With
It
thoughts that
keeps
I'm
me,
protecting myself.
yeah, that keeps me seeing them and me as with my own nature, and so needing to protect myself. And so perpetuates that cycle of samsara. I get reborn because I want more me. I mistakenly want more me. Not that we don't, not that we, huh, not that we want to disappear at death, but when we don't grasp to the more me mistakenly, when we grasp to an accurate me, what wouldn't be grasping? That wouldn't force a rebirth. But what does that mean? You just continue dying? Does this life not end? You stay in the bardo forever? If you don't have a grasping to a me at the end of this life, what happens?
Then I think we would be maybe projected to a better, maybe a better run or
Yeah,
a better life than what we have left behind.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Elsie, this is still your part.
And so from that, we will take rebirth into the cycle of pain. Grasping to people or their parts as existing through some nature of their own is the root of the cycle of pain. Mhm.
You could say it is the cycle of pain. Roxana, please.
Okay. This explanation that we must realize that these two are empty of any reality in order to liberate ourselves from the cycle of pain demonstrate that the object that enemy destroyers who are listeners and self-made Buddhas realize is also emptiness. It is empty. The cycle of pain is empty.
Right. 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 Thank goodness.
I know.
Okay. So this is where we actually start back up. Would you continue, please, Roxana?
Yes. He's saying that as long as we are unable to eliminate our tendency to hold to our parts as if they truly existed, we will not eliminate the view of destruction. And sages within our philosophical system, or even those of others, would never say that there are enemy destroyers who have not eliminated the view of destruction. And so this book by our protector Nagarjuna demonstrates very clearly that listener and self-made Buddha, enemy destroyers, have eliminated completely the tendency to grasp to things as if they were real. He will clarify this very point over and over further on. But isn't it a habit to think, me and my parts,
Yeah.
me and my world,
Yeah.
me and everything?
Right. Because all our seeds have been planted with that. So all our seeds are going to ripen with that.
Right.
So how in the world do we ever break that cycle? If every seed ripening has the belief in the self nature of the me, the object, and my interaction.
I think these are like baby steps that I mean, just by reading it, just by having the seeds to listen to it
Right.
and to stop and maybe we do not, I'm talking about Roxana, okay? About this, that I'm trying, making an effort to get a little bit of clarity
Yeah.
of what he's trying to point out to us.
Right.
But they're just baby steps. I think for me, they're baby steps, but just by listening to the words, reading the words, knowing that there
Yeah.
is a way out.
Yeah. It seems almost miraculous that we're here, right? That we're here hearing these words to the level that we are. It's like, oh
Right.
my gosh,
I know. Even that, it's a great ripening, dear Lama.
it is totally. It's curious that he keeps bringing up the fact that listeners and self-made Buddhas, they understand this. He's talking to a king who must know about listeners and self-made Buddhas and must misunderstand something about them that Nagarjuna keeps bringing it up. I don't know really the circumstances. And I don't know.
When he talks about self-made Buddha enemy destroyers,
Right. So that's arhats, right?
right. And listeners are just the ones that study, right?
Yeah, I understand that they can listen, they can even teach the higher way, but they can't internalize it and actually put it into practice. Somehow their seed ripening mindset is, I understand this, but it's too much for me, or something like that. So they're very knowledgeable, but don't practice. It doesn't make sense to me what this thing a listener is, but it must happen because there it is in the literature.
Yeah, well, just try to imagine, Nagarjuna telling that to the king, and Nagarjuna is coming from a place where there are a lot of monks and Buddhists and practitioners during that time. So
Yeah,
he must be surrounded by a lot of people with different mindsets and
Right,
different
right.
ideas back then, trying to explore and
But in
convey
200
messages.
AD, was there even the Bodhisattva activity? It hadn't even started yet, had it? Nagarjuna was sort of like the one who brings love and wisdom together, I thought.
Well, they were great philosophers back then.
Yeah,
Then I imagine that each one of those great philosophers, they had their own small community
yeah,
trying to build on the Buddha's teachings.
yeah, yeah.
So probably they weren't as active as bodhisattvas, but they
Right.
had the foundation to start whatever it is that
Yeah,
I imagine. I don't know.
yeah,
It must have been something really big back then.
yeah. Like these were the
Um,
practitioners that the king knew of, listeners and self-made Buddhists, and that what makes them practitioners of that level is that they have grasped, eliminated the grasping to things as if they were real. I guess if we didn't understand that that was the realization through which they became self-made Buddha, we would need to have that pointed out to us
Right.
by Nagarjuna. Okay.
Yeah, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm quite confused with self-made Buddha and listeners. So they have actually defeated their mental affliction. It's like they also achieved nirvana, is it? I've forgotten already.
Yeah, at least this one where they're he's saying they're self-made Buddha enemy destroyers.
Uh-huh.
That means they've completely eliminated their mental afflictions and seeds for more due to their individual analysis. They're seeing
Mm.
emptiness, experiencing emptiness
Emptiness
directly, and
directly.
then right, living according to it, but
Mm.
not with bodhicitta in their heart.
Mm.
Not with the goal to reach their total Buddhahood, with their goal to
Mm.
reach nirvana, which they have done, self-made Buddha, enemy destroyers.
Mm. They must have accumulated a lot of merits over the past lives and
Right, right,
yeah, and to
right.
get to this point and then just listen
Yeah,
and achieve nirvana.
right.
Mm. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah,
Right. When we say they practice without bodhicitta, could it be that they are there are some who just follow the rules? You know, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, but there is no compassion when they teach. It's just very rigid. No this, no that, no everything.
yeah,
Could they be that that kind?
yeah. As I've been trying to grapple with these different, ideas of what a practitioner's motivation would be, um, it, it felt like anybody on their path who's understanding the no self nature of themselves and others would become more caring, more compassionate of others. Uh, and so I came to understand that the difference in those levels is in the capacity to believe that one's self could is meant to reach total Buddhahood themselves. And I don't know if I'm accurate, if this is correct, but it's like if you just totally did not have the mindset that that you could become Buddha. That the highest achievement that this one could reach is nirvana, then I would be setting my goal on nirvana and doing what I can to reach nirvana, which does require making merit, which does require avoiding harming others. And in avoiding harming others, I'm helping others instead. And so I am becoming more kind, more compassionate, directed towards the highest goal that I believe I can achieve, which is nirvana. And then, right, I guess people do that. And somewhere along the way, the recognition that, oh my gosh, because of the empty nature of me and my accumulating goodness, that my heart shifts and I recognize that in fact, this me is meant to transform all the way to total Buddha. And then I try to think of it in terms of a Christian background, because that's just what I was a little bit familiar with growing up. And I never heard anybody talking about, I'm meant to become God. Like what I heard was, live your life in such a way so that when you die, you will go and live with Jesus forever. And how wonderful that will be. And and I don't know how the deep practitioners viewed that, because I didn't know any of them. I don't know any nuns, monks in the Christian tradition. So it's like I'm right trying to look at how I experience other people. And it was like surprising to hear somebody say, my goal is to become the Buddha for my world. And then I think what hooked me about it was that because of something that happened to me in life, I remember having had the thought, I wish this could never happen to anybody ever. What happened to me happens to other people, and it just twisted my heart. And then I had this thought that, I wish that could stop. At the time, I had no clue that what the wish I was really making would land me in this tradition that says, no, you're meant to become Buddha, right? Because of your emptiness, to become Buddha is words we use to describe the highest evolution of this mind stream that I don't know, that's possible in this round. I don't know, there's got to be something higher, but I don't know. Sorry for that long-winded answer. I'm just trying to get the grasp of the importance of understanding the difference between listener self-made Buddha level of understanding emptiness and karma, and then the level that I say I'm practicing on, which is the bodhisattva level. To keep checking, am I really living according to what I say I think is important, which is everything that happens to everybody is coming out of my seeds, and so I am ultimately responsible, which is the seeds that would lead to, well, then I'm going to be ultimately responsible for all their abundance and safety and beauty and concentration through which they create their worlds. I can only make a world that is that. I can only personally make it. And it's extraordinary to have that thought and be attracted to a tradition that's what the tradition teaches. And here we are, like deep, deep into that tradition, trying to understand it better. Like, pat yourself on the back. You are extraordinary.
So, teacher, when you say the self-made Buddha and listeners don't practice, meaning to say they actually don't practice bodhisattva way of life, but they only have the knowledge of wisdom.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, they have the knowledge of wisdom
Uh-huh.
from direct
But they don't.
perception, self-made
Uh-huh.
Buddhas,
Uh-huh.
enemy destroyers do. And they have bodhicitta,
Mm.
their wish to evolve to their highest state, which they believe is their nirvana, but they don't practice as a bodhisattva. That would be a debate too. They would say, I am so being my spiritual warrior on my way to nirvana, which if a bodhisattva is on their way to Buddhahood, then he's not bodhisattva. But it's just a theoretical debate, right? Their practice is avoiding harming others and being kind in order to stop their own mental afflictions because they've seen emptiness directly.
Meaning to say, teacher, they still practice being kind.
Yeah, they
So,
have
I mean,
to.
to what extent? Because you're talking about like a bodhisattva understanding like karma and emptiness, and then obviously through the knowledge, you will try to practice kindness and everything that we learn. And I don't understand how they can reach emptiness directly when they don't practice like a bodhisattva. That's the funny part.
Yeah, I
Maybe
agree.
to a certain extent.
Yeah. There's
It
something
doesn't
about the mind
doesn't make
imbued with
sense.
bodhicitta. Right. Do you remember those
Mm.
words? To perceive emptiness directly with a mind imbued with bodhicitta
Yeah.
versus to perceive emptiness directly with a mind imbued with reaching
With
nirvana.
body.
They don't say that, but that's the implication. It makes the effect of the seeing emptiness directly be different on your mind when you come out, it seems. Yes, Janet.
Isn't this kind of weird that he's teaching to this king whose son and the mother eventually asked for his head, and and he happily gives it to them?
Yeah.
And wouldn't wouldn't he know at this point how everything comes together? And yet he's writing this letter to this king anyway.
Anyway.
But he evidently doesn't see it as negative the way we do.
Yeah.
But he thinks, because this is the way he is, he thinks it's hilarious. But to me, to us, it's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, that just so clearly points out the difference between the Bodhisattva view and the nirvana is my highest possible view. I'm not sure a self-made Buddha would be able to do what Janet just pointed out. Nagarjuna knows he's cultivating this king, and the end result's going to be Nagarjuna's own head. And he's doing it anyway. That's like, wow. So then like my thoughts going, well, then he knows so clearly that his self, his identity isn't in the him that's there at the moment, or he'd be afraid to do something that would make him lose his life. If he's so clearly unattached to that, knows that that whatever his subject side goes on, he doesn't care one wig that he's gonna give this body away, because just the next moment he's doing something else with some other, like he doesn't associate with his Nagarjuna me the way I associate with my Sarani me. which is also what comes about when you perceive emptiness directly. Maybe you have to do it again and again in order to remember it, or in order to live by it. So it's not like self-made Buddhas who become arhats have ignored everybody in order to stop their own mental afflictions and become arhat. They have to purify and make merit. It's the purify and make merit practices their mind is set on so I can reach nirvana, instead of set on so I can reach Buddhahood in order to benefit everybody. So the deeds might be the same, but the mindset for why they're doing the deeds is different. And so the result's going to be different. The seed imprint is different, so the result's going to be different. So we're training ourselves in not killing, not stealing, etc. And then we flip those around and try to be more giving and more protective and etc. And if we did that with a mind so that I can stop my own suffering, that'll be its result. And if we do it with the mind so that I can stop everybody's suffering, that'll be the result. So that, right, our motivation is pretty important. And like hearing my own self say that and thinking about, well, what is your motivation all day, Sarani? Like first thing in the morning, I set it up really clearly. And then I get the chance to do it again every time I start a class. But then in between, I'm back on automatic pilot. I'm not thinking, oh, with bodhicitta. I'm just taking it for granted that my mind is imbued with bodhicitta, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's not enough. No. Yes, Elsie.
Lama, I'm thinking that it could it be that uh, because when I was young, when I was learning about Buddha, um, I was told that he it wasn't that he achieved enlightenment. He reached nirvana under the Bodhi tree while meditating under the Bodhi tree. So could this be what they taught all along that Buddha uh, he reached nirvana and hence that is their goal. Because all along before I started learning VCI, my mind was okay. My aim is not to become Buddha, but to emulate Buddha to reach nirvana.
Right. To emulate Buddha. That's a nice point. So, there are Buddhist schools whose goal is nirvana. And right, it sounds like that would be the teaching that they would give, that Buddha reached nirvana and this is what he did. And if we emulate that, we can reach that goal as well. Believing that nirvana is the highest thing. And then it's like, well, Mahayana scripture says no, because nirvana does not include omniscience. And then all of a sudden there would be this like big brouhaha if we were in the tradition that said, no, to be a Buddha is to reach nirvana. And then somebody says, no, no, there's more to Buddha than nirvana. Like that would start a split. So, I don't know the cultural history of Buddhism. I was Christian. Then I met Buddhism. And then all I met really was Mahayana Buddhism, Tibetan Mahayana Buddhism, which has its own uniqueness to it, of course. So it's really interesting to hear of your experience. It helps me understand a little better that, right? That if the teachers of that tradition, that's what they were taught and that's what they were practiced, that would be the reality and that would be their goal. And there's nothing lesser about it. Like if every existing being was nirvana, the whole world would be a peaceful, wonderful, lovely place. Maybe it would be like a Buddha paradise. We just wouldn't be omniscient. Well, if everybody's happy, who cares if we're omniscient? If everybody reaches nirvana, it's a good thing to think about. It seems so, I don't know, to me, I feel so like, no, no, that's a lesser kind of Buddhism, but come on, it's not. Hmm. I'm so grateful though for the clarity and precision of Geshe sharing the ACI curriculum with us. Making these things so clear. Not that it was clear in the first 20 years that I was studying it, but you know, now it's like, oh my gosh, if I had just stayed with the original group we were involved in at here in Tucson, it was a beautiful practice group, and they did prayers and mantras together, and they did service projects together. But at least back then in the 90s, we weren't receiving these didactic trainings on what this means and what that means. And I don't know if they do now, but I'm just thinking if I was still in the way it was in the 90s, I would be a prayer practitioner and not really understand these things as deeply. And I don't know, maybe I'd make just as much progress, but I'm just really grateful to understand, because the better I understand, the more I can get myself to live according to it. And I have seen that change in me. Yes, Janet.
So the difference I noticed in going to Deer Park is is the emptiness teaching, which they haven't done until recently for whatever reasons. And
Interesting.
but Geshe Michael did.
Yeah.
And and the defense I've heard is that people aren't ready for it, and you should not unless people are ready for it. But
Yeah.
Geshe Michael says, well, if you don't get started, by the time people are ready for it, they're like 70 and 80, and they don't have a lot of time to digest something that takes a lot of time to digest.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to make of all this because I'm an older person. There aren't that many younger people at Deer Park,
Yeah.
and they have never heard emptiness teachings before. They'll go into a Nagarjuna teaching and say, "Oh, that's different. That's not like the Lam Rim at all." And I
Yeah.
haven't had that experience because I'm getting the Nagarjuna teaching and the Lam Rim all at the same time.
Yeah. Sweet.
So I think that, they were directed not to teach emptiness to people unless they were ready. It's a no-no unless they ask for it. And
Yeah.
I don't know why people didn't ask for it. I don't know what's going on with that Tucson group that they wanted to focus on getting positive seeds. to receive emptiness teachings, but then never really get to the emptiness teachings themselves. But
Yeah.
wouldn't you like kind of clue people in that the whole purpose of getting positive seeds is to receive an emptiness teaching? Um,
Yeah.
it seems like I don't know why there's this it's another type of a corruption. Um, like you're protecting people because if you start teaching them, they'll never come back again.
Yeah.
They'll just run screaming, or they'll be just deeply offended at your arrogance.
Yeah. 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 There's actually also a diamond way vow, not to teach someone unprepared. Like we see it in Bodhisattva, but then there's a stronger one in diamond way vow. And again, Geshe is so what's the word, ahead of his time in how we use and learn our vows as uh very specific guidelines of behavior with a lot of with but in using them we fit them to life, not in the sense of making excuses for why I can break them, but seeing how they were meant to be used during Buddhist time and how they're meant to be used to help people, not to withhold things from people. So, I mean, I'm seeing it now with him moving into the diamond way in this different way. I don't know what it's going to be like, but he's been so open and clear and about sharing diamond way insights to people even before they have the proper preparation, which is to do a certain kind of retreat, like the Thousand Angels, ladies, and then to have the proper empowerment before you would even hear about certain things that he has people in business already doing in life. He doesn't say, oh, this is a tantric practice that I have you doing. He just uses the idea of it and puts it into their skill set. And like from my side of a traditionalist, it's like, Geshe, you are breaking vows, you are hurting them. From his side, with his, purity and insight, he sees that they are ready. So, I don't know about teachers in the tradition. It,
He
if
is
they,
not the only one, Lama Sarani.
I know
Those
there is.
alchemist people are doing Tantra. There's no question about that. And I
Yes,
wasn't prepared, but they're
yes,
praying to angels and they're embodying angels and they're asking you to embody angels in order to teach people. And I was never prepared. And my Ne Lama is like, it's very dangerous what they're doing, but I have my Ne Lama, and there it is.
right.
And the thing with the tantra the alchemy people is they never talk about emptiness. They keep talking about the divine, about God. But if you
Yeah,
read the literature carefully, that there's a Mahamudra energy. It says to go beyond the mantras, to go beyond. Well, what is it that we're going beyond? We're going to emptiness.
yes,
That is the going beyond. But they
yeah,
never talk about it.
yeah, yeah. Curious, right? Yeah, I see. And it's our seeds ripening. And so if we'd like to see more people open to the deeper clues that will help them change their behavior to make different seeds, then I myself need to stay open to new ideas, others' ideas, ask about others' ideas if I want my ideas asked about. Right? I don't go walk into a group and say, look, you need to know about emptiness. Great, because they're going to go, okay, thank you. We'll see you later. just because it works for us. I mean, karma and emptiness works. We know it's an explanation of how things work, but not everybody who hears it is going to be attracted. Not everybody who hears it is going to go, oh, that's the answer. And it is unfortunate then that the scriptures themselves say, don't lay that on somebody before they're ready. And then we tend to protect it as if, well, nobody's going to be ready for that until we've already taught them. And by then they're 70 years old and they don't have enough time to work with it, as Janet says.
Well, they have enough time, but they have less. I mean, it's much more dire for somebody
Yeah.
who's 70 and starting, or
Yeah.
even for me, 57 and starting.
Yeah.
And it seems like Arya Nagarjuna is telling us that you have to do it through demonstration. But what's going to happen is that when you demonstrate, like looking at everything with emptiness, you're going to come off as this bizarre, crazy person. And
Yes.
I don't know much about Chandrakirti. I'll learn a little bit more about Master Chandrakirti, but Arya Nagarjuna does come across as this, he doesn't do the program. He
Yeah.
doesn't do the program of being comfortable and happy. He kind of does. He teaches the traditional stuff, but he knows that, that his actions will come across as bizarre,
Yeah.
and he actually welcomes it, which
Yeah.
is so strange. Like he wants to be bizarre, but is that my goal to be bizarre? I don't like, am I trying to be like him?
Yeah.
I don't know. Because when you
Yeah.
don't do the program, you come across as as questionable. Like, why would you want
Right.
to do that?
Right. Swimming upstream. Yeah, and Nagarjuna, his teacher was Master Saraha, and Saraha was totally crazy, completely anti-establishment. And so Nagarjuna is toned down compared to his teacher, and he's still wild.
So if you
Yeah,
teach
good point.
emptiness, you have to demonstrate emptiness. That's the
You
thing.
do.
And you have to be willing to
Yeah,
turn the other cheek, or to um I guess in the case of Jesus, get crucified and
right,
come back. And you have to be willing.
right.
And I don't know, I mean, I have people who I see that demonstrate this, and yeah, I debate whether I can achieve that within this lifetime, but
Mm.
I guess you don't have to. You don't have to achieve it within this lifetime.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to. And then also over time, what we mean by this lifetime is that definition's gonna change. And, you know, they don't have an end date specific for Nagarjuna. Yes, there was a point where he said, okay, take that braid of the grass, that'll take my head for you. But then the parts came back together. So, all right. So why are we talking about all of this?
Listeners and self-made Buddhas, how they want to be happy and blissful, but they're not necessarily trying to break this cycle of suffering for good.
Exactly. Exactly. For everybody. Yeah. All right. Pauline, please.
Okay, teacher. In his earlier works, from having familiarized himself over a long period of time with the viewpoints of non-Buddhist schools, our protector Nagarjuna refutes texts composed by other masters which contain refutation of his unmistaken works. He does so in order to prevent people from being deluded, for those texts presented the polar opposite of the meaning of emptiness. He managed, however, to present logical consequences which speed, speed,
Yeah.
this split or speed, which speed these beliefs out, casting them off far away.
Interesting. Just what we were talking about. Pauline, go ahead and finish this little bit.
Okay, teacher. How wouldn't this misunderstanding bring us the misery of the cycle of pain? It is just the thing to make us find a place like that, a metaphor. Here's the second part, a metaphor illustrating how the cycle of pain depends upon its roots. Its root.
What's a root? Metaphor. Elsie, please.
The tree path has no beginning, middle, nor end. Spinning round in this wheel of fire, the cycle of pain, around and around like a disc. These cause things are the cycle of pain. So this is explaining the cycle of pain.
This is supposed to be a metaphor for the root of the cycle of pain.
So the three paths would be like the self-made Buddhas, the listeners, or which are the three paths?
I don't know.
Mm.
Would it be the chicken and the pig and the snake, the middle of the wheel of life?
Yeah,
No.
could be those. Could be those. Let's see if he clarifies it. What's the matter, computer? Janet, please. Oops.
Negativities, karma, and all defiled rebirths.
Is that the three paths? Let's see what he says. Hold that thought. Negativity is karma, defiled rebirth. Have we reached the end of their translation? I'm not finding any more English. Hold on, I'm gonna go fast. I think we're done. We have that yet to go. Okay, I'm going back. So this verse isn't even finished yet. because here's the colon. So what would you like to do? Shall we hash out this verse? Or would you like to go to the other Nagarjuna text that we have? Because here are the seeds of not being able to get all of Nagarjuna again. I'm so sorry.
Let's go to the other one. That's my suggestion.
Okay, but anybody else?
Me too. Because we will be guessing and then we don't want to plant those seeds. Better get a confirmation after they translate.
Agree.
Play
I
our
don't know.
uncompleted seeds.
Yeah, he'll know we're not giving up on him, so he
Right.
won't give up on us.
Right. Go, Nick. Okay, let's take a break and I'll go find my other text. Stop share. Make you small. Shrink that. Move this. Light for a friend. Light for a friend.
Teacher, actually I'd like to ask about something. We have this ACI discussion with some of the students. They're trying to complete the ACI course, and we are on ACI 5+7. And then we come to this question. It says, are you okay, teacher?
Speak up so I can hear over my cough, please.
Okay. Sorry. It says, give examples for the following. A, something which is a karma but not a path of karma. And then it says the answer, a simple movement of the mind. It doesn't say karma is a movement of the mind and what it motivates. It just stopped at a simple movement of the mind. And then B will be something which is both a karma and a path of karma. So it says any of the 7 non-virtues done through body or speech. A mind has motivated the deed, the bracket karma, and a complete deed has been motivated. And then C will be something which is a path of karma but not a karma. This is the one that is confusing. The 3 non-virtues, which is mostly made by the mind, which is where I feel is talking about the non-action part, which is not covering the physical body action and the speech. This part it says the 3 non-virtues of mind, bracket ill will, coveting, and wrong view. There had been no movement of the mind in the sense of deciding to commit mental non-virtue, but a complete deed has been completed. But I thought when we have like no physical action or any speech done, meaning to say maybe there is a karma, a thought ripening, and then this thought actually ripen will probably trigger us not to say something or do something, but we still probably have it will make us to me there is still a karmic path in the sense that this ripening of the karma, let's say I have some anger, it will trigger more anger or something else, most likely a negative thought or feeling, right? But maybe it doesn't make us do or say something. So there is a karmic path, but why does it say that, but not a karma? That's the part I don't understand. Is it confusing, teacher?
Yes.
Oh,
It is
so you want
confusing.
me to repeat the C part?
No, it's
Because in the student note, it did mention that this is debatable. So
yeah.
my understanding is every karma, path of karma, it has to start with a karma, right? If let's say there is no karma, then how to have a complete karmic path? So I don't understand why it says here that C will be something which is a path of karma but not a karma, which is referring to the more of the thoughts rather than the 7 non-virtuous deeds committed through speech and physical action.
Yeah. My understanding of that whole sequence
Uh-huh.
is that they're pointing out that when we learn those 4 parts of a path of action, that you need, right? So what we mean by karma, the imprint made, the imprint out, that whole process, set that aside.
Mm-hmm.
When they talk about a karma, we can have a movement of the mind, but we don't do anything else, as you were saying. Then
Can we term that as like, for example, a ripening of a thought? For example, is a karma.
that's what it's trying to point out. If the karma we're talking about is a karma of body or speech, you have to have the whole ripenings,
sequence.
plantings happening that include the actual action and the completion of the action. And right, in order to have the seed planted in the strongest way, that's what makes the path of karma important, is to plant a seed strongly enough to bring a result. But then when it comes to those 3 mental karmas, just for them to arise has already done the equivalent to having all 4 parts of a path of action of speech or a path of action of body. But you've already done it just to have the jealousy. And so they're saying just to arise jealousy is a full mental seed planting. But it's not it's not, if you don't do anything physical or verbal, if you do something physical or verbal, that's a different seed path motivated by it. So I think what it's trying to point out is that for those three mental non-virtues, just to have the movement of the mind of that is enough for it to plant a seed for more of that jealousy. The action or what we say or do, that's different. That goes into the realm of the four parts of a path of action. But why they say that it's a path of karma, but not a karma, that would get down to some kind of detail of the definition of what they mean by karma. And I never did understand it exactly. But the
So
difference
teacher, you're
is
saying,
we think in a path of action, it occurs to me, it occurs to me to say something nasty, and then I say it with the high intention to hurt. I'm happy I did it, that I have the full path of karma for saying that nasty thing. When it comes to a moment of jealousy or ill will or a wrong view, just having the thought is the complete path.
having the thought, I agree, is complete in the sense that this jealousy thought probably would trigger to cause me to plant another negative thought. That's my way of thinking. So it's a karmic path complete without doing any action.
Right.
Our teacher is talking about how we derive at this jealousy seed ripening because of the past karmic path that I've planted, or which one is the one that triggered the next negative thought, or the earlier one that caused this jealousy seed to ripen?
The having had a previous path of karma of jealousy, which is only just the thought, that itself apparently is planting the seed to have jealousy again some other time without even having acted from it, just to have it.
So all this I can understand. It's just that when they say something which is a path of karma, which I agree, but you say but not a karma, which I don't understand.
That
So
I
we
don't
don't know how.
understand either.
Oh,
I
so
don't
we
know
just
how they're defining karma in that way. Because yes, it's a
yeah,
movement of the mind. Well,
correct.
if it's a movement of mind and what it motivates, it's not included the what it motivates in that.
Correct.
So
Oh yeah,
maybe
actually
that's the detail. That's the detail.
but if you think that this jealousy thought actually motivates another negative thought, actually
Right.
it does motivate,
That
but
does. Right.
it doesn't trigger an action in the terms
Yeah.
of body action or speech, but it does trigger another plant,
Right.
trigger me to plant another seed. So it's like, so okay, anyway. So we don't know how to explain to the student.
No.
Okay, thanks.
I think the important thing is to recognize that with those mental non-virtues, just to have them is a negativity enough that we would want to struggle against it. I think it comes up because we just go, okay, if I'm jealous, I can feel jealous as long as I don't act badly towards somebody. And
That's
this would
wrong.
be pointing out, it's like, you're just hurting yourself to let that jealousy go on,
Correct.
even if you don't act from it.
Yeah, and we didn't recognize that we actually planted another negative seed.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Good. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, so I found this other text, but it's so teeny and I don't see how to get it bigger.
All right, so there's a plus and a minus. If you push the plus, it could make it bigger.
Download me. Thank you. Is that bigger enough? No, I've got to shrink us a little bit to see the sidebar. Where is it? Can I shrink this down without losing the whole thing? Oh, look at that. Oh, okay, so this is Light for a Friend, an explanation of Nagarjuna's first letter to a king. Where's his snakes? Oh, that's Jetson Randhawa, not Nagarjuna. By Arya Nagarjuna with a commentary by Jetson Randhawa, Shanu Lodru, 1349 to 1412. Nagarjuna, 200 AD. Light for a Friend. Thank you, Geshe Michael. Thank you, Diamond Cutter Press. This labor of love is dedicated to my two dear teachers, Ken Rinpoche Geshe Lobsang Tarchen, who first introduced me to this holy text, and my precious wife Veronica, who first taught me how to use it. Okay, shall we? Janet, please read as much as you like and then hand it off to somebody else.
Preface. Here's a small story about the wonderful change that this book can make in your life. Exactly 50 years ago, I was an undergraduate student at Princeton University. I'd studied abroad in Asia under a grant from the university's School of Public and International Affairs, and overseas, I had heard about a distinguished Tibetan scholar of the ancient Asian classics who lived near Princeton. This was Ken Rinpoche Geshe Lobsang Tarchan, 1921 to 2004, who had graduated from the study program of a Buddhist master, Geshe, some 25 years before, earning the very highest of honors. Ken Rinpoche, who was later to become an abbot of Saramay Monastery, one of the largest in the world, was invited to come and give a talk at the university by my dear teacher in the Department of Religion, Professor William Lafleur. Dr. Lafleur was one of the first scholars and translators of ancient Buddhist works in the West. Ken Rinpoche delivered a teaching on the famous Heart Sutra with a live translation by his close student, Dr. Artemis Engel. I immediately knew that I would be very much like to study under this great master's tutelage. Within a few days after graduation, I began personal studies with Ken Rinpoche at Rashi Gempe Ling, a small traditional Buddhist temple and monastery in the Kalmyk Mongolian community of Howell, New Jersey, less than an hour's drive from Princeton. The Kalmyks are a group of Mongols who inhabited the area of what is now southern Russia and Kalmykia after the conquest of parts of Europe by the Mongols in the 13th century. After a Second World War, hundreds of Kalmyks immigrated to the eastern United States as homeless refugees. The Mongols in general had become Tibetan Buddhist around the time of their world conquest, some 700 years before, and the Kalmyk tribes in the United States worked very hard to preserve their culture and religion, building several traditional temples there in New Jersey and inviting great Mongol and Tibetan scholars to teach at them. Ken Rinpoche was the greatest of these savants. I couldn't know at that time, but I was to spend the next 25 years living with and serving Ken Rinpoche with his teaching mission in the United States. I was allowed a tiny room at Rashi Gempe Ling Monastery, joining about 10 very aged Kalmyk monks and meditators. I had had a very normal upbringing in America, attending a public high school in my home state of Arizona, playing sports on team schools, starting a rock band with my friends, dating and having fun on the weekends. I had done the same during my years at Princeton. And then suddenly, here I was in one of the most unusual towns in America, where at the local convenience store you were quite likely to bump into the former Cossack military officer with a huge sword scar down the side of his face, or perhaps the purple robe reincarnation of Tilopa, a mighty meditator from India 1,000 years before. For me, it was a misexistence. On the one hand, I had a priceless opportunity of studying closely several hours every day with one of the greatest Buddhist masters in the world. On the other hand, my personal situation was quite lonely. After years at a top university filled with exciting colleagues and lots of social life, I was suddenly quite alone in an entire town where no one even spoke English day to day, only Tibetan or Russian or Kalmyk. Do you want someone else to read, or should I keep reading the preface?
You are doing a great job. Please
As
continue.
as a student in training to become a full monk, I was always also implicitly expected to stay in my tiny room all day and all night meditating, or with my nose in an ancient book, and it was assumed that I would observe a commitment to celibacy. I soon noticed that my years of weekend fun at school actually made me restless, starting on Friday nights and lasting through Sunday. I struggled with my urges, and I couldn't really expect any help from the monks around me, whose average age was something like 75. It was at that moment, and so often, as often happens in the life of a Buddhist, that help was delivered to me unexpectedly by almost divine means. Ken Rinpoche and his assistant, Dr. Engel, were engaged in translating some of the greatest classics of Buddhism into modern English. I was a good typist and I had done well in my literature classes at school, so naturally I ended up being a secretary and proofreader for some of these efforts, typing out many hundreds of pages on an ancient IBM electric, no personal computers in those days. One of the texts I edited was a translation by Rinpoche and the and art of the letter to a friend, composed by the illustrious Indian sage Nagarjuna, with a commentary by the Tibetan master Jutsun Rindawa. I distinctly remember my breakthrough moment with the book. I was still struggling with my lack of personal social life at the monastery, and then suddenly I reached the area around verse 26 of the text where Arya Nagarjuna is warning his readers, an ancient Indian king, to keep his personal morality carefully, especially around issues of sexuality. As I typed out the translation here, it seemed, of course, the master was talking about me personally. Spellbound, I quickly typed onto verse 27 to see the solution to this 2 millennia old challenge, hoping I could use it myself. And suddenly, in this verse, Nagarjuna dropped off into a super deep explanation of the magnificent Buddhist concept of emptiness and how the world is flowing from karmic seeds ripening out of our own minds. He was basically sending me a message in a bottle, which was washed up on the shore of my little monk's 20 centuries later. Arya Nagarjuna's solution to my challenges, emptiness, turned out to be the solution as well as to every other human problem. It triggered extraordinary experiences which have followed me for these last 50 years and granted me an extremely happy and fruitful life. I truly hope it will do the same for you. During those 5 decades, many new tools have become available for a translator of ancient classics, where my friends and I once spent days searching by hand through dusty carvings to try to find a single reference in this book. That work can now be done in a minute or two using resources like extraordinary 8 million word free of charge searchable online database Asian Legacy Library ALL. At the same time, after 50 years of really hard and unremitting work, I have developed translation standards for the difficult terms of ancient Buddhism, which I believe can help make this wisdom much more accessible to the normal English reader. I hope this will enable you to journey deep into the book you hold in your hands and find your own life solutions there, as I myself was so fortunate to do under my teacher's precious guidance. Geshe Michael Roche, Rainbow House, Rimrock, Arizona, September 16th, 2025. So that's why he studied emptiness, because he was typing the stuff that Art Engel was helping Ken Rinpoche did. So he wasn't kept from it. He just sort of stumbled on it. And then he had a problem, and he realized emptiness was the solution to all the problems.
Light for a friend, an explanation of Nagarjuna's first letter to a king. Thank you, Janet. That was spellbinding. Pauline, you're next up on my screen.
Okay, teacher. Herein lies the commentary upon the letter to a friend entitled Light on the Real Meaning. It was composed by the High and Holy One Rendawa. Opening prostration. I bow down to the victors and their daughters and sons, along with all their disciples in every corner of the universe. Honor and a promise. The one who holds the rabbit, the Lord of the able ones, sent forth 1,000 ivory rays of light. All his holy activities, all of them totally pure. They bring coolness to relieve the fierce heat experienced by every being as they are tormented by the evil of negative thoughts. This is a true autumn moon, this in its fullest form, spreading 1,000 rays of perfect, cooling light, just the same as breezes from the pleasure gardens of Malaya, imbued with the sweetest scent. Do I read the explanation, teacher? One who holds the rabbit.
Sure.
Okay, one who holds the rabbit. Just as Westerners saw a man in the moon, those from the east have perceived the image of a rabbit in the pattern of the moon's surface. Thus, this is an ancient poeticism for the moon itself. Malaya, an ancient legendary mountain chain of India.
Thank you. Imbued with the sweetest scent.
Maybe
Roxana.
Elsie. Okay, Roxana.
Elsie. Thank you, Pauline. Elsie, you want to carry on, please?
Thank you, Rosanna. Here is one who, when they even begin to send out a fraction of those cooling rays free of all attachment, succeeds in shutting in a single moment the petals of a forest of lotus blooms. The lovely faces of those young ladies, ordered forth as envoys by the arrogant demons, pairs of bee-black lotus eyes, with smiles of perfect white at the center of the bloom.
Hmm.
Susanna?
Yes, thank you. There may be 1,000 birds of beautiful plumage, followers of other schools, residing upon peaks of mighty mountains of views that hold to mistaken extremes. But they are unable to set forth the slightest glory that might outshine the light that he offers. For the precious jewel that adorns his cobra hood, an emptiness which is free of all extreme views, banishes the darkness. May Nagarjuna, Lord of the Dragons, take his place of victory upon the crown of every living being there is. Lord of the Dragons. The author of our root text, A Letter to a Friend, is of course the illustrious Arya Nagarjuna, who lived about 18 centuries ago. His name in Sanskrit can be read in two parts, Naga, meaning dragon, of the sea, and Arjuna, referring to a mighty archer lord among warriors in ancient times. The dragons here are pictured like cobras, who are said to hold a precious jewel in the middle of their forehead, which are themselves surrounded by a hood of skin similar to that of a cobra. Thank you. I think you're back, Janet.
His perfect words are a gold mine of jewels, and now, according to the best of my ability, and urged to do so by the number of pure-minded spiritual friends, I will examine those jewels, eloquent words of advice offered to a certain dear friend.
Mm.
There's something that those of you with great understanding, those of you who are keeping the proper ways, should know is coming in the days after I have passed into my final nirvana. To the south, in the land of the Prita, there will come a glorious monk of exceeding renown. He will go by the name of Naga, and he will destroy the positions of they exist and they don't exist. He will take my teachings and explain them in the world primarily as the greater way, the way which is unsurpassed, and he will attain the level of perfect happiness, passing to the heavens bliss of this famous sutra. It's interesting to note that the half of the orientation name of Jetsun Rendawa's illustrious student and teachers like Jason Kappa, Lobsam Drakpa, renowned one of a pure mind, is included in the prophecy in the same way that half of Arya Nagarjuna's name is
Where's the rest of that? There.
included. The greater way mentioned here is the way of the Bodhisattvas, who are working to liberate all living beings in the universe.
Mm.
That is, there was a great one, the realized being Nagarjuna, whose appearance was prophesied in this and a great many other sutras. He once dispatched an epistle to his friend, the king named Udayabhadra. This letter to a dear friend describes, in a completely unerring manner, the methods for attaining the higher births and definite good. And you can understand this work as having two most basic sections: advice to listen to such instructions, and then the actual instructions itself.
May we go down to the footnote and see what they mean by definite good?
All right, realize being Nagarjuna, realize being. This is a technical expression for a person who has seen emptiness, ultimate reality directly. The Sanskrit here is Arya, which usually connotates one who is in a higher position. Definite good. This is a technical term expression for nirvana and enlightenment. See, for example, an easy path to omniscience.
Okay. We had that term in the other text. They were talking about definite good, and it wasn't clear to me what they meant by that. Now I know. Thank you.
So is it the next person? Is it Pauline or Elsie? Pauline?
Sure,
Yeah,
I'll-
I can continue.
Okay.
Thanks, Janet. Listening to goodness. Here, then, first we cover the advice to listen. O you who are worthy by goodness, by virtue of a nature of fine qualities, I've composed but a brief work. These verses in a song of a realized beings, in order that you might aspire to the merit expressed in the words of those gone to bliss. It would be proper for you to listen. Now, some of the first words, worthy by goodness, by virtue of the nature of the qualities, are addressed to the king, so that he will turn his ear to these advices. You to listen, our reader will note that our author, Jetsun Rendawa, is skillfully weaving the root text of Arya Nagarjuna's letter into his commentary, where words are thus woven. We wove the Tibetan text, and how to pronounce this? Italize, is it? The English, the weaving style of commentary, by the way, can sometimes make the flow of the Tibetan and the corresponding English a bit clunky. The expression fine qualities here refers to virtues, for the king has been relying on good deeds and become accustomed by accomplishing them. And when we mention a nature for it, what we are talking about is a cause. That is, something here has come about through the cause of a certain good deeds that were accumulated earlier on. And due to this root, the king has become a worthy vessel for listening to the highest of teachings. As such, we refer to him as worthy of goodness. To put it all together, then, it would be proper, O king, for you to listen to this instruction, since you have become a proper vessel to receive the highest of teachings by virtue of having accumulated in days gone by the roots of good deeds. And what specifically should the king lend his ear to? He should listen to these verses, which have been put together in the style of composition we refer to as the Song of Realized Beings. Over to you, Elsie.
And just how long is this composition? A king has many responsibilities and would be unable to retain the content of a text of considerable length. As such, said the Arya, I have composed but a brief work, so as to avoid the fault of going on at excessive length. And who is it that has composed this work? I, which is a reference to the Buddhist monk named Nagarjuna, have composed it. And what does he hope to achieve with this work? The instructions expressed or taught in the highest of all spoken words, the teachings of those gone to bliss, is the merit or method that we employ to reach the higher birth and definite good. So it is, O Lord of the land, that I have shared this in order that you and others as well might aspire to these goals.
Nice.
The unmistaken method for reaching the higher birth and definite good is found nowhere else but in the teaching of the Buddha. Rosanna?
We can see this in fact that those of the other traditions believe that one can attain a higher birth or freedom itself through acts such as sacrificing a cow, or asceticism such as plucking out all their hair, or the deep practice of meditating upon some self-nature to things. This then is why the text mentions, in order to attain the goodness derived from what is expressed in the teachings of those who have gone to bliss, the intent here is to communicate that thought that aspiring to the teachings of what the textual traditions of other groups teach as being goodness will fail to help us achieve the goals which we hope for. And suppose that you, O king, are thinking to yourself, I shall decline to spend my time listening to the verses of poetry you have composed here, for they display no great elegance in the composition. The lines which follow next are meant to express the thought that even though the wording might possibly be inferior, the message it conveys is something excellent, and so it would be a mistake to disregard it. To make this point, a metaphor is employed. Worthy by essence. Consider an image of one gone to bliss. even made of wood, and whatever it may look like. Still, those who are wise make offerings. Just so, my poetry here may be poor and yet, relative to the fact that it reflects the holy Dharma. This is not something that one should berate. Thank you.
Janet, back to you.
Here, first, let's consider an image of one who has gone to bliss, even if it's only made of wood, meaning even when it might be made of something like stone, clay, or anything of the like, and whatever it may look like, beautiful or not. Still, those who are wise make offerings to the image, due simply to the feature of what it represents at its core. They pay no consideration to details such as whether the material used to craft it is exceptional, or decidedly not, or whether the image has a pleasing appearance or not. Just so, it may well be the case that my poetry here is poor, in the sense that it's expressed in an inferior way. Still, though, relative to the fact that its subject matter reflects a description of the holy Dharma as a means of attaining a higher state of birth and definite good, this is not something that anyone should undertake to berate, for it's truly deserving of the praises of the sages. After all, as the saying goes, one should not rely upon the syllables of the wording. Rather, the wise rely upon the actual meaning. The wise rely upon the meaning. This sentiment is repeated in a number of sutras, for example, the famed teachings given by Ashlamati, never-ending wisdom. Now, suppose the following idea should occur to a person. Let's allow then that the wording here is not anything but great beauty. The fact that we have already, long before this, heard a great many examples of the high speeches of the one gone to bliss, and long since comprehended them. As such, there's no compelling need for us to listen to that speech once more here. The next verse, then, is presented in response to demonstrate through the use of a metaphor that even if there is nothing here to grasp that we have not already grasped before, still it would be right to listen now in order to further clarify those points which we have long since comprehended. This idea is again presented in the medium of a metaphor. Admittedly, you have already met with and comprehend 1,000 sweet topics of the sacred word of the great able one. Why, though, wouldn't alabaster plaster applied to the walls shine even more resplendent white in the light of the winter moon? Now, the Lord Buddha is referred to as the able one because he has been able to guard the three doors of which he does what he says and what he thinks from non-virtue. Does, says, and thinks. He is further great in the sense that he has eliminated within himself each and every subtle seed for anything related to negative emotions, as well as having to take rebirth. And finally, the sacred word of the Buddha, the conqueror, is sweet sounding, for it is ultimately well spoken. It is admittedly true that you, O king, have already met with and comprehend 1,000 sweet topics of this word, and yet, if you go further and listen to the instructions offered here, it will make those teachings extremely clear to you. As such, it is appropriate now that you listen to this work as well. Suppose, for example, that the alabaster plaster has been applied to the outside of the walls of a royal palace. we already have then a solid white. But if in addition to the light of the winter moon, but if in addition the light of the winter moon were to strike those walls, then why wouldn't the whiteness they display be even more replacent? Of course they would. And the case is just the same here with this teaching. Pauline?
Sure. Maintaining 6 kinds of awareness, which brings us to our second section from above, the actual instruction itself. This comes in 3 different steps. General advice to carry out good deeds, advice that the king should learn to be dismayed by the problems of the cycle of pain, the advice to consider the great benefits of attaining nirvana so that we can then carry out the path. Part 1. General advice to carry out good deeds for both those following the home life and those following the life of the ordained. 6 kinds of faith. The first step has 3 parts of its own, and the first of these is advice to both parties, to those following the home life and those following the life of the ordained. This advice itself comes in 3 points. The first being instructions to abide in a state of faith through employing the 6 kinds of awareness. Faith, which directed towards the Buddha and the rest, is the very root of all goodness. And in the following lines, the king is being advised that he should constantly bring these 6 kinds of awareness to mind in order to magnify that faith. The victors have described perfectly the 6 different kinds of awareness, those of the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the community, giving an ethical life, and the worldly gods. You should stay aware of the group of fine qualities for each one of these. Here's how we pull the different components of this verse together. The victors are so called because they have managed to defeat each and every form of wrong. That is, the Buddha, the conqueror, has described for us the 6 different types of awareness, and awareness focused upon the Buddha and so forth. And here we are being advised always to bring to mind each of these types of awareness on a daily basis. And just what does this awareness involve? We are being advised to stay aware, to bring to mind the group of fine qualities for each of the members of this list, the Buddha and so on, just as these features have been described in the sutras. Over to you, Elsie.
I have a question. Teacher, I have a question. What?
What question, Mom?
These 6 awarenesses. Awareness of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And I get it, I think. Giving and an ethical life. Okay, to keep myself aware of that. But why awareness of worldly gods? What do you think?
Could it be other things or government officials? As we respect them, as we would respect maybe a god?
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Is this referring to the 6 perfections?
Well, we see 2 of them.
Why worldly gods?
I don't know the answer. It seems odd, doesn't it?
Hmm. Is there a footnote that will explain that? I wonder.
I don't know, maybe worldly gods are so real to the king. I don't mean that disrespectfully, that part of the king's good awareness would be, I don't know, to also be somehow serving and taking care of the worldly gods too. Like maybe his kingdom includes. I don't know. I don't know. Of all the things that he could be asking, suggesting the king keep his awareness on in order to gather the goodness to reach nirvana and Buddhahood, to keep your mind on worldly gods, it just seems odd to me, doesn't it?
But in our time, what would be a worldly god?
Teacher, could it be the king has a wrong worldview? It's just like paying respect to something ultimate. To them, it may be the worldly god back then is the ultimate to him. That's the wrong worldview.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe it's to have compassion for the world, or to not aspire to be a worldly god. Would that be? It could be. I don't know.
Yeah, but what are those worldly gods? I mean, because if you study a little bit of history, they would make sacrifices or offerings to the rain,
Right,
to, I mean, to
right,
harvest.
right.
But what would be those worldly gods? I mean,
For a modern society,
yes.
your bank account. I don't mean yours. One's bank account, one's
No,
what kind of car you have in your,
it's what you treasure then.
you
It's what,
treasure what you think's important, maybe. What we're willing to do wrong deeds to keep or get would be our something that has a worldly power over us.
So this is a wrong worldview, like grasping to a self
Maybe.
attachment,
Yeah.
attachment.
It just seems like there are other ways he could have pointed that out rather than saying, keep your mind on all these good things and worldly gods.
Did you want to skip ahead to the commentary where he answers that?
No, don't need to skip ahead. It's coming, right? It's
It's
coming.
coming.
Is it
He
coming?
answers, it's pretty short, but he does answer it on page 42.
Good for you. I can be patient. I will wait for it. Okay, so did we finish this? We're
Yeah,
advised to stay aware. Okay. Awareness in the
it's up to
Buddha.
Buddha.
Who's next?
Me, Kelsey.
All right.
Let's begin with the fine qualities of the Buddha. And so it is said that the Buddha, the conquering one, is one who has gone that way. He has defeated the enemy, and he is totally and perfectly enlightened. He possesses knowledge and two mighty legs. He has gone to bliss. He knows the world, and he is the driver of the chariot for those individuals who have been tamed. He is unsurpassed, and he is the teacher of both gods and humans. He has defeated the four demons and possesses the ultimate good fortune. As such, he is the conqueror. The Buddha is described as the one who has gone that way, either because he has realized the true nature of reality, or because things are always only the way that he describes them, and never change to be some other way. Two mighty legs, as described following, the two mighty legs are a foundation of the extraordinary training of morality and meditative concentration. For further information on this and other items of this traditional listing, see, for example, A Fantastic Food for Faith by Chakya Rawang Loksang Chundan. The four demons, they are outnumbered as follows. They are numbered as follows. First is the demon of the child of the worldly gods, which refers to anything which might distract us from our spiritual goal. Then we have the demon of negative thoughts and the demon of the powers to us which are mortal. Finally, we have the demon of the Lord of Death. There are also more subtle versions of these demons which involve the misperception of the reality which ultimately cause the first fall. See, for example, Master Ngawang tells in annotation to the first chapter of the Jewel of Realization. He is the conqueror. The high quality listed here for each of the objects for us to maintain awareness upon are drawn from various ancient sources of the described by the Vedas. In each case, we will give just a representative example. For this section, see the note 64B of the Golden Light Scripture. He is further known as the one who has destroyed the foe. This is because he has destroyed the enemy of everything to do with the negative emotions, and also because he is deserving of offerings both in the form of material objects and honor. He is known as a perfectly and totally enlightened Buddha because his knowledge extends to each and every existing object in a perfect way without any error at all. The Buddha possesses knowledge because he has mastered wisdom, and he possesses two mighty legs in that he owns the support needed for wisdom, ethical behavior, and meditative focus. The Buddha is known as the one gone to bliss, either because he has traveled to a place of exquisite beauty, or else because he will never return back. Deserving of offerings, both of these offerings are drawn from the original Sanskrit word here, arhat. The appellation can be read in the first sense by dividing the word as arhat, where ari means enemy and the root hat means to smite. For the second sense, we divide arhat, where the root art means to deserve. The Master Dwight Whitney Root's verb form and primary derivatives of Sanskrit language is always an invaluable resource here. Next, Rosanna.
Thank you. The Buddha is also referred to as the one who knows the world. See, he has a high and accurate knowledge of the world, for example, both in the sense of the living beings who inhabit it and as the outer vessel of the physical world. This is all because of the fact that he understands, first of all, the way in which we in which the 12 links of dependent events operate, as well as the origin, the location, the dimensions, and other details of things like the earth below, mountains, and so on. Think then of how the driver of a cart carries out their duties. On one hand, he or she seeks out oxen who could serve to pull the cart, who are appropriate to the task, and then they set this to work on the team. There are some oxen, though, who, when joined to the team, tend to pull the cart off track, and this the driver releases from their duty. There are others who simply tend to veer somewhat once they are joined, and this the driver sets to staying straight on a road which is also straight. Can we stop and reflect here, please?
Yeah. What kind of oxen am I?
What kind of disciple, right?
Right.
So could it be, for example, that the carriage, the teachings, right?
Right.
And what we do with the teachings. If we fall off trail, if we practice thoroughly with a clear mind, with a clear motivation, state, with what kind of state of mind?
Yeah.
So he's talking to us. We are the oxens.
Yeah.
Yeah, because earlier on it was mentioned that Buddha the was the one who drives the chariot uh, of those that he has tamed.
Yeah.
Right? Of the word.
I'm thinking that an oxen, if an oxen has a mind of its own, and you strap it to the rest of the team, and it has to,
He will
right?
pull
It has to it has to perform in a certain way because somebody said so, and it has its mind of its own, and it's like, I'm not going to do this. You can't make me do this. And it just causes havoc. And so the cart driver goes, okay, get this one out of here. And then there's another one that's like, all right, I'll go along with it, but I really want to go over there. And but he can manage to keep that one. Okay, you can stay, I'll work with it. And then there are the other oxen that just go, okay, I'll go along, I'll go along, I'll go along. And then like in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, that oxen with the mind of its own, hooray for them. Stand up for what you think is right. But then in these teachings, right, we're taking a mind that, a personality that wants to go ahead and hurt people to get what I want because it just doesn't seem wrong. Like the willfulness that I think gives me strength and power is the very willfulness that causes me the trouble, that causes me to get released. So it just feels like the usual analogy of the oxen is, yeah, be the oxen that gets loose from just following blindly. But this is saying, no, notice that when we meet a teaching that prescribes disciplined behavior because of understanding how that creates a future of beauty and happiness, then my ox and me will say, great, put me in line, I'll behave, but instead I struggle. I'm not going to do that. You can't make me do that. It just feels like the reverse of what worldly thought would be about that oxen metaphor. Yes, Janet.
I mean, you got to remember that this book, the oxen are all coming from your own side. So
Yeah.
it's really about you, not the oxen. So if you have a part of yourself that's not following along, I mean, I would offer that part a Diet Coke if that's what it really wants. I mean,
Yeah.
I would start, and I noticed that Geshe Michael kind of does that.
Uh-huh.
He'll offer what people really want, even if it doesn't have to do with emptiness,
Right.
because in the end, it's all coming from your side anyway.
Right.
So if you don't want to deal with it, that's fine. That's one way to deal with it. I don't know if I've cut off my family at this point,
Yeah.
but another way of dealing with it is just to give it what it wants and
Yeah.
deal with it later
Yeah.
because it's coming from your side, sadly.
Right. Right. Which is, it's like, do we struggle against the teachings or do we embrace them and use them? Oh, nice. Good.
Yeah, I think we're all invited to the party here.
Yeah. Right.
We're all invited to join in,
Yeah.
right? It's what you do with the invitation, it's what you do with the seeds that ripen with it.
Right.
But even, the stubborn, the one who is mischievous, it's also invited.
Yeah.
It's given the opportunity. Maybe a different seed would ripen and would, react and say, hey, I'll continue on.
I mean,
Good.
the program
Actually,
is
we're
to
out
ki
of time.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Janet.
Janet.
the program is to kiss your boss's ass, the program is to use your trauma and go along with the program. So when you go against it, there's something kind of interesting about that. But that person who's going against it still wants something,
Yeah. Right.
sadly. So
Right.
you could determine what that is and you can offer that to them in the meantime and then deal with breaking the program later. I mean, it's the thing with programs is that once you break a program, there's another one. This is a program too. This teaching is a program too. And
Totally.
eventually we'll have to break that as well. But that's
Right.
too much for people to absorb. I mean, if you have to keep breaking programs, why even get involved in it? I mean, with Tai Chi, why even do the practices and why even learn if you're just going to let go of it anyway? But the conclusion with the teacher is that the way of letting go is to go through everything and then you let go of it. And I think with Buddhism, it's similar. The way of
Yeah.
letting go of your mental afflictions is to lean into them just a little bit.
Right. 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 Nice. All right. It's time. So remember that being that we wanted to be able to help. We've planted seeds to set in motion the end of their suffering, and that's a great, great goodness. Page 32. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy beings. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close. To continue to guide us, help us, inspire us. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into our hearts. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To to share it with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom, and may it be so.
It was fun. Can you
Thank
just
you.
wrap up, dear Lama? Because I think we're leaving this in a very interesting part.
Well, he has said, look, King, keep your mind on these 6 factors: Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, giving,
The
ethical,
ethical way of life. Hmm?
and the worldly gods. And in his pointing out the advantage of keeping our mind on the Buddha is keeping our mind on the good qualities of the Buddha. And then he pointed out that metaphor, and maybe you'll find yourself to be the kind of oxen that won't have itself be restricted in that way. Or maybe you'll find yourself the kind of oxen that will be restricted but won't actually follow it. Or maybe you'll be the kind of oxen that hears it and follows it but does it on automatic pilot. Hey, what kind of oxen student? Right? How's the king supposed to use that? Use the good qualities of a Buddha to help him be a better king. I think that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you. So the
Thank you,
card
teacher.
could be like the 6 awarenesses.
I think the cart represents getting your load to where you want it to go. The cart is the process of getting to our destination. And we need the oxen of our behavior choices to drive us there.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I wrote down page, looks like 37, but I think it was 32. And we'll pick up next week, huh? Okay. All right. Thank you so much. That was fun.
Thank you, teacher.